All right, so Buffalo Sabres just finished the home and home against the Maple Leafs. The Sabres took home 3 out of 4 possible points, which is pretty good. The Leafs are struggling, the Sabres are struggling, and I said going into this week that this week was really going to be what kind of sets my mind about the Sabres for this season. If they came into this week against the Flames and then this home and home, if they came in and just totally stunk up the place, I would probably start assuming that this is going to be another season like last year, where it just, a little bit of a hot start and quickly became old garbage Sabres. And if they split the home and home, or they won all 3 games or whatever, I'd feel really good. And we came out of this whole week with 4 out of a possible 6 points, including 2 overtime games, 2 overtime losses. And I consider overtime losses a tie, just like I consider overtime wins a tie. I said it in the last video. I don't like 3-on-3 overtime. I think it's a gimmick, or it seems like a gimmick, right? I understand that it's it's fast-paced and it's fun or whatever, but to me it seems like not 5-on-5 NHL hockey. I don't understand why they don't just play till someone wins like they do in most sports. And then if you're going to have a shootout, which I understand at least, why does it have to come after 3-on-3? Why can't it just come after a 10-minute overtime period 5-on-5, right? That just doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, so this home and home just happened. Home and home had 2 very different games. The one in Buffalo was wide open, high scoring, a lot of back and forth, high energy play that resulted in 10 goals total, including 1 empty net goal. And then you had the second one, which was equally exciting, I think, from chances and, hockey watching, having fun perspective, with just, very strong goaltending. And it was a 1-1 tie going into overtime. So how am I feeling? Well, the Sabres, when they are sucking, they appear to be playing catch up when you watch them, right? Like they're completely not dictating the pace of play, and it seems like they can never regain it for even a small amount of time. Right? It just seems like they're always chasing, and even when they have possession in the offensive zone, they're not playing with an assertiveness that you see when I think they're playing their better hockey. And all 3 of these games, I saw that assertiveness. So now that this home and home is over, and we've had the opportunity to see the Sabres play 3 pretty important games, I think it's time to start looking towards the future, right? What do the Sabres need to work on? Well, number 1 has to be the power play. The Sabres had a great power play in October. I cannot imagine what happened that it sucked so hard in November. But they were, I think, 1 for 37. Hold on, let me look that up. 1 for 37 in the entire month of November on the power play. It's not even unacceptable. That's dumbfounding. That's dumbfounding. If you're not scoring power play goals, you're not going to win games. That's where a team gets so much of its energy and so many of its goals are scored. So I don't know what to do about that. I'm not a coach, but something needs to change. For comparison, the average team scores 1 out of every 5 of its goals on the power play, and scores about 1 every 5 power play chances, give or take a few percentage, like a few tenths of a percentage point. The Sabres went 1 for 37. 1 for 37 meant that the Buffalo Sabres scored on fewer than 3% of their chances. That's well less than 1/6. That's almost 1/7 the league average. And that's the league average, right, in the month of November. The second thing, depth scoring. Depth scoring, my friends. If your name is not Eichel, Olofsson, Skinner, or Sam Reinhart, and you are on the Buffalo Sabres, you do not have very many goals this season. And we're getting to a point where it's like, where are these goals going to come from? Here, we'll look it up right now. All right, so here we go. Washington Capitals. Ovechkin has 20 goals. Jacob Vrana has 12. Kuznetsov has 11. TJ Oshie has 11. Tom Wilson has 10. John Carlson has 8. The Washington Capitals have 4 players who have scored more than 10 goals. The Buffalo Sabres only have 1 player that has scored more than 10 goals. And unfortunately, I think this all comes down to the fact that the Buffalo Sabres just do not have an additional X factor player. We don't have that extra player on our roster who can consistently put up points and consistently put up points independently of how the team is doing overall, right? Victor Olofsson looks like he might be that player in a couple of years, but he's a rookie, and he's streaky. Jeff Skinner and Sam Reinhart look like they have it in them to be that type of player, but right now they only have 9 and 10 goals, respectively, Skinner having 10. So that means that they're only scoring goals in about 1/3 of their games. So with 37%, Jeff Skinner is tied for 60th in the league for goals per game. You contrast this with a team like Boston or Washington or Edmonton or the Rangers, who each have 2 or 3 or even 4 skaters that are averaging about 50% or better for goals per game. And you see what the Sabres are missing, right? We are missing that player. And I think we want Jeff Skinner to be one of these players, and we believe that Sam Reinhart can be one of these players, but at a certain point, it's like Jeff Skinner might just be a second-line winger who's a little more productive than your average second-line winger, right? I don't know if he is that X-factor player like we thought he might be, right? Eichel certainly is. But we don't have an extra one. We don't have a second one or a third one like they do with the Rangers or with the Washington Capitals. So anyway, their defense looked a lot better. Defensively and goaltending-wise, all 3 of the games this week, I was not very disappointed. You always want to win, and so when you lose in overtime, it feels like a loss, but it's not really a loss, right? We played both of these teams to a tie in 5-on-5 hockey, and these were fine games, right? Defensively, puck control-wise, and all that. It's just we are still being carried by a smaller number of players than I think a top-flight NHL team needs, right? Anyway, so those are the 2 things we're going to look for. And we'll still be looking for puck control because that is the name of the game. We'll still be looking for better play in the transitions. But down roster scoring and the power play are going to be the 2 things that we look for. Okay, time for a change of topic. So we're talking about all these stats, and I think it's important to realize that we are in a strange place in hockey. If you're a stats-minded sports fan like I am, we are in a strange place because unlike baseball that has StatCast and has decades of advanced analytics behind the types of stats that we use to talk about things, to talk about players, to talk about teams, or talk about specific events. The NHL doesn't really have that, right? We've only really had advanced analytics at all in hockey for a little over a decade with this idea of the Corsi number, which is also called shot attempts, and the percentage, the Corsi for percentage or the shot attempt percentage, which is a very good stat, and it is more important than plus minus, and it kind of replaces plus minus in the same way that on-base percentage replaced batting average in terms of like people who take the game seriously. Right now, the Sabres have bumped their way up to about a 50% Corsi for percentage. That's average, right? So it's the amount of shots that your team attempts divided by the number of shots that your opponents attempt. Now, most people think this is better than plus minus because it takes into account many, many more events than plus minus. Plus minus only takes into account goals, but Corsi for percentage takes into account any attempted shot that either team makes. And it's better than plus minus because when you think of the flow of a hockey game, The team that is attempting the most shots is generally putting themselves in a better position to win, assuming that goaltending and defense are about the same on both sides. The team that's putting more pucks toward the net is the team that's going to be in a better position to win. And whenever I see a soft goal go in on either side, this is always reinforced to me. The goal in the Toronto game, the most recent one, the goal behind Hutton's butt, a very fluky looking goal that I'm sure Carter Hutton wishes that he could have back, set them up to get on the board first, right, and to score a goal. So Corsi for percentage is super important, and a player's individual Corsi for percentage I take more seriously than that player's plus minus in a given game, and a team's Corsi for or shot attempt percentage is something that I take more seriously than plus minus on a team level. Because when you think about it, if you're on a line and every time you go out, you are just getting amazing shot, amazing scoring chance after amazing scoring chance, and their goaltender is just on fire, blocking shots left and right, Dominic Hasek doing cartwheels or whatever, right? And then you're on the ice for one stinking goal on that the other team scores. Maybe it's on the transition. Maybe it's not even your fault. You leave the game with a -1. Even though you might have, taken, 10 shots. Who knows that game? Your line, whatever, could have taken 10 or 15 shots that were just lasers that didn't go in because the goaltender's playing well or for whatever other reason. Or they all go off the crossbar, right? So that's the reason why Corsi is a better stat than plus minus. But it's not the best stat. And unfortunately, we don't really have access to those best stats, right? TSN or MSG or NBC Sports or some blogs will talk about some really advanced analytics, but you can't access them, and they consult with you, and you develop packages with them. At least that's the vibe I get from looking online, trying to find the really good stats, like ozone puck control, offensive zone puck control is the stat that everybody is saying is way more important, and it's the stat that I care about the most, right? I want to know for how much time are we controlling the puck, especially when it seems like so many good things happen when you keep control of the puck. And so many shitty things happen when you give up the puck or when you cannot keep control of the puck. But this isn't a stat you can just look up. So there's a website called thepointhockey.com, and it publishes your top 5 skaters in specific advanced analytics. But that's it, just the top 5. You can't search through it. You can't, find trends or anything like that. And they get their data from Sport Logic, which is a company based in Montreal, and you go to their website and it's all about how can our advanced analytics help you, right? It's like they exist to sell their analytics to companies like ESPN, TSN, right? The media outlets and to teams. So, and no one seems to be picking up on a lot of this stuff yet, but they do talk about it. So it's like they are accessing this data. That's very frustrating because I want to know this stuff, right? Good news for the Buffalo Sabres is we have Jack Eichel, who is tied for second in offensive zone possession per game with 1 minute and 10 seconds. And he's 4th in slot pass completions this season. So when you think about all of these amazing stats, you just want to look into them more, and you can't. And that's very frustrating. And I'm hoping that as we move towards a more analytics-minded fan base, sites like hockeyreference.com or Corsica.hockey, if that's even a thing anymore. It seems like their website's been down for a while. Or TSN, right? TSN is a site that should have this information. And just like the MLB website publishes StatCast data, and they have OPS and OPS Plus, and I think you can even get WOBA. You can definitely get their xWOBA, which is an interesting stat. It's just sort of like a, in a snow globe kind of stat. That's interesting. Anyway, you can get that all on the website. So I can go to baseballsavant.com, type in my player, or type in any sort of thing, right? And they also have an API. So like people, it's all free is what I'm trying to get at. Is it's free and they are making this available to us, right? Hockey, we're still using these like 10-year-old, 15-year-old shot attempt based metrics, right? Corsi, Fenwick. I don't know, man. It's a bummer. It's a bummer because I want to know where the Sabres are, right? At the end of a game, sometimes they'll put it up on the screen, but that's probably because they've bought that feature from one of these companies, right? It's not something I can go to the website for the Buffalo Sabres or the NHL or the TSN or the MSG and look up, right? It's like special for that moment. That's the one time you get this information. And that's frustrating. This being said, the Sabres' overall Corsi percentage, their shot attempt percentage, those are synonyms, it's just two different words for the same thing, is now at 50%, which is great because about a month ago,
implies that they
it
are
was closer
controlling
to
the puck more.
47.5%.
So they're attempting more shots.
Which implies that they're controlling the puck more, right? But this stat, these stats are not as good as ones that I wish we had access to. All right. Thank you for listening. Tomorrow night, the Sabres play against the Devils, who are not doing well this year. So I'm going to be looking for a blowout win. I will not feel good unless it's like something like 4-1 or 4-0, because I think that's what the Sabres need. I mean, I'll feel good with any win, right? Any win is fine, but like I expect them to blow out the Devils, especially after a frustrating 3 games where they get 4 points in 3 games, but only 1 win in regulation. And then it's a rematch against the Flames
In Calgary, so that should be a fun one. I probably won't do another one of these until the end of the week. So happy December, and go Sabres.